For the Clippers last night, they lose their fourth in 11 games. He's officially out tonight against the Pels, second game of the back-to-back as a sacrifice to the deity that is left knee injury management. Patrick Beverley also out with a calf injury. One Clipper we are expecting to see, Paul George, who is expected to make his debut. He underwent surgery in May to repair a partially torn tendon in the right shoulder and another procedure to repair a partial tear of his left labrum 1 month later. Our NBA reporter, Royce Young, joins us now from New Orleans. Royce, you know Paul George from his time in Oklahoma City. What can you tell us about how the rehab set up this season and even beyond it?
Yeah, Keith, like you mentioned, a lot of people forget that Paul George had surgery on both shoulders, and he played through all of last year dealing specifically with a torn right rotator cuff. He played through through their postseason series against the Portland Trailblazers. There was one point in that series, Keith, where he could not even lift his arm above his head, and then he played in the game the following night. So that's something Paul George told me last year, is that he felt like he played the best basketball of his career despite being unhealthy. So as he comes into this year now playing alongside Kawhi Leonard, he feels like for the first time in a while, he's actually healthy.
Well, someday they'll play alongside. The new element to NBA excitement. Try to guess which night your favorite player will play. Royce Young at Pels Clippers in New Orleans.
A lot going on in this game as well. Roll call. Beard is here. Kawhi's here. Let's go. Where's the D? Harden's tough enough on contested threes. That's like a foul shot for him. And Doc Rivers just hangs his head and turns around. Next trip down, Harden's finding a nice spot about 26 feet out over there. Hits the three over Kawhi. Sets him up, and Kawhi just gives him a little smile and runs back down court. Rockets up 12 at the half. Clippers come out really strong in the third quarter. Ball movement, making that extra pass. The offense scored 31 in the third after scoring just 37 in the entire first half. So the Clips close the gap, down 6 heading into the fourth, and they're going to make that up as well. Kawhi pulling up and finding a three and getting the foul on the play. Steve Ballmer flexing. Kawhi had 26 points in this game. Clippers at that point up by 4. They're up 2. Russell Wilson, who had 4 fouls in the first quarter, but still hanging around with 5.5 to go, hits a big shot right there. Rockets up by 1. Then Harden puts it on the floor. They retake the lead. Then Harden left open from 30. Absolutely. Rockets up by 4. And then watch Patrick Beverley here. Gets called for his 6th foul. Very ticky-tack. Watch this again. Nothing there. Nothing. So Beverley fouls out. He wants a word. Play continues. Harden had 47 in this game. And right after that, Beverley comes off the bench and gets teed up. And then Doc Rivers would get teed up. Felt the refs took away a timeout they shouldn't have when he wasn't allowed to challenge a call. So he's mad later when they don't have any timeouts left. And then his son, Austin, is egging him on. Doc would get tossed. The Rockets win 102-93. Here's 2 generations of Rivers discussing the bizarre finish.
I mean, come on. You can't do that. You can't do that in a 4-point game. That could never happen. Could never happen. We didn't deserve to win with the way we were playing right now, offensively or defensively. But mistakes like that cannot happen on this level. That was awful. And the responses to throw me out, I didn't swear. I just said, this is nuts. But when you make a mistake like that, you can't then throw the coach out. Like, you got to own up to your mistakes. We own up to ours. I just told you we didn't play good basketball. I got to do a better job with our offense. I'm owning up to it. They should own up to it as well.
I knew it was coming. I could see him. I've seen that look before many times. So once he starts blinking his eyes fast, that's when I know he's about to level up. So I just started telling Tony to get him. They got him. He's out of here.
He also tweeted, Austin Rivers, that Thanksgiving might be weird. Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith joining us here on Coast to Coast. Austin Rivers calling for AT, and he got it. Doc eventually gets ejected. Let me ask you this. In this back and forth that had been happening all night with Doc, obviously not happy with the way his team was playing, but with the refs as well, was he wrong in this situation, Stephen A.?
No, he was not wrong, because what happened is that he first of all, he's averse to the coaching challenge. He can't stand it. He and I spoke after the game. He doesn't like it. He's never liked it, and what have you. He didn't feel that was something that needed to be implemented into the system, but nevertheless, it's there to be used by coaches. That's what he used. They were trying to say that he didn't use it in time, and as a result, he was being denied the coaching challenge. But if you're being denied the coaching challenge, then you should at least get to keep your time out. Not only did they not grant him the coaching challenge, but then they turned around and confiscated the timeout that he had available to him in a game that was relatively tight. So that's when he went ballistic. Not to mention the fact that the sixth foul against Patrick Beverley was absolutely bogus. That should not have been called. And of course, obviously, the combination of the two basically derailed the Los Angeles Clippers. In the end, James Harden was absolutely sensational, proven to be the unstoppable offensive force that he is. And in the meantime, the Clippers get set to play the Houston Rockets next Friday, I believe, in L.A. And Doc Rivers and the Clippers' attitude is, we're looking forward to that because we'll have our full team. He's saying that because Paul George was sitting on the bench, and Paul George had an attitude prior to the game because he desperately wanted to come back last night to go up against Harden and the Rockets as opposed to waiting for tonight to go up against New Orleans, I believe. He wanted to play last night. The Clippers would not allow it. That's why Paul George wasn't in the lineup. You can expect something different next Friday when they play on ESPN, and we should all be looking forward to that game.
I'm definitely looking forward to that, and you broke down all those storylines to pay attention to. Meanwhile, let's switch gears.
On the air, Memphis freshman James Wiseman, the projected #1 pick in the 2020 NBA draft, has been declared ineligible, will not suit up in the immediate future for the Tigers. The announcement just coming out from the school. The NCAA had said that Wiseman was ineligible after receiving improper benefits. Penny Hardaway decided to play him while Memphis and the NCAA battled over his eligibility. The school is applying to have Wiseman reinstated. The guy is averaging nearly 20 points and 11 rebounds a game in his freshman year. Made a splash in his debut with 28 points and 11 rebounds just 9 days ago. Last Friday, he was ruled likely ineligible by the NCAA. Still played that night after getting a temporary restraining order. He played in Memphis's loss to Oregon on Tuesday as well, and then today dropped his lawsuit against the NCAA. Carrie?
All right, David, thank you for all that and the timeline. Joined now by our college basketball analyst, Jay Billis. Jay, you've spoken with Wiseman's attorney since the decision was made. How did we arrive at this point today?
Well, there have been discussions between Memphis and the NCAA about Wiseman's status, but the NCAA told Wiseman's attorneys, and I assume told Memphis, that it would not reach a resolution of Wiseman's status while a lawsuit was pending. So Wiseman decided to withdraw the lawsuit, and there could be a couple of reasons for that. One, it could be that the lawsuit was withdrawn just so that they could begin the process of doing this, and the NCAA could very well have threatened that they would open up a separate infractions case on Memphis for playing an ineligible player. It could also be that the two parties, Memphis and the NCAA, had reached a wink and a nod agreement as to how this would shake out if they were to withdraw the lawsuit, declare him ineligible, and then seek reinstatement. Because that way the NCAA could say, we told you he was ineligible. Now you agree, so now we can work on the process. So it's a lot of saber rattling. But the ball is back now in the NCAA's court, where they get to do it essentially their way, whether they have a wink and a nod agreement as to how it's going to work out ultimately or not.
All right, let's stay with that, the wink and nod agreement, perhaps, because the next question I was going to ask you was, what does this mean for his future as well as for Memphis's season? Well, it depends on when he can play. He will be able to play again. $11,500 from a booster would normally be, according to the matrix that the NCAA uses, a third of the season or 9 games. Maybe it'll be short of that. Maybe it'll be the whole 9. I don't know where that's going to shake out. Ultimately, what it means for James Wiseman after this year, when he goes into the NBA draft, is 0. The NBA doesn't care about any of this stuff, so that's not going to affect his draft status or his future at all. It's just an issue for this season. And it's also, frankly, an issue for Memphis. The biggest issue here has not been,
whether Penny Hardaway would be described as a booster under the rules or the amount of money, all that stuff. That's not been the biggest issue. The biggest issue was Memphis deciding to play Wiseman when the NCAA said he was ineligible, because that was setting Memphis up for future penalties beyond this season. And so that was really what was unusual about this, was that Memphis was playing a player that the NCAA told them was ineligible, and that was highly unusual.
All right, so Memphis says James Wiseman is ineligible.